Is Tuesday, September 29th. Thank you for joining us. It's good to see everybody. It's been a little while since we had a meeting, but I'd like to call to order a meeting of the Disaster Council. Roll call, please, Eleanor.
Yes. Let's see. Council member Dr. Stratton. You'll need to all be unmuted. Let's see.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry for the
Okay,
delay.
great. No problem. Dr. Grosh Hill.
I'm here.
Gosh, you.
Dr. Keller. Okay, absent. Tom Backley.
Here.
Dominique Knoll.
Present.
Rebecca Elder.
Present.
Joe On. Mo Shirley.
Here.
John Elderson.
Here.
Ellen Stanford.
Here.
Tanya McKenzie. Carrie Silverstrom.
Here.
Sorry.
Kevin Ketchum.
Here.
Mike Wazansky.
Here.
Keith Kaufman.
I'm here.
Bob Metzger. Ted Saman.
Here.
Joe Hefkin.
Here.
And Mayor Brand.
Here. Thanks, Eleanor. Sounds like we get a good group. We'll skip salute to the flag and go right to order of agenda. Are there any objections to the order of agenda? Not hearing any, so ordered. Next up are blue folder items. These are items that get added to the record after the agenda has been posted. Are there any blue folder items, Eleanor?
Eleanor, you're muted.
Any blue folder items, Eleanor?
No blue folders, Mayor, today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we move on to this consent calendar. This is just some routine stuff. Approve affidavit of posting, in the following Disaster Council meeting minutes from July 15th, which was the last meeting we had. So is there any comment about any of these consent calendar items? So with that, I'll entertain a motion just to approve a consent calendar. Somebody make a motion, somebody make a second.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Mayor Brand, I need to make a change to the July
Who's that?
minutes.
Sorry?
This is member Carrie Silverstrom.
Hi, Carrie.
I incorrectly, the minutes are accurate, except I incorrectly stated during that meeting that the county's moratorium had been extended through August. And that didn't occur until the following Tuesday, when the moratorium was actually extended through September.
Well, it's okay, Carrie. Don't worry about it. I mean, if you said it, it has to be in the minutes, and if it turned out to be inaccurate, it's okay.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. But is that what happened? You just misstated whatever it was?
I misstated. It didn't happen until the following week.
Yeah, we can't correct the minutes. It just is what it is. So it's okay. I wouldn't worry about it. Right, Eleanor? I mean, we don't need to go. We shouldn't correct it, actually, because it was said.
Yeah, we'll just state it for these minutes here if it was stated incorrect. But we'll go back and review it. We'll review the tape and change it if we need to.
Okay.
And just so nobody's confused, because of what I've just said about what happened in August or in July, the county's moratorium has now been extended through the end of October, the eviction moratorium.
Okay. So was there a motion to approve the consent calendar? I apologize. I thought there was.
Yeah, Rebecca Elder made a motion to approve.
Yeah,
I make a second.
Great. So there's a motion and a second. We'll do our little roll call vote. How about that? Let me see if I call on everybody properly. I don't know. Eleanor, can you do the roll call vote? You have the
Sure, I could do that. Dr. Stratton.
Yes. Aye.
Dr. Gosh Hill.
I'm here.
Tom Backley.
Aye.
Dominic Knoll.
Aye.
Rebecca Elder.
Aye.
Mo Sharifi.
Here.
John Elderson.
Aye.
Alan Stanford.
Aye.
Tanya McKenzie. Aye. Carrie Silverstrom,
Aye.
Kevin Ketchum,
Aye.
Mike Wazanski,
Aye.
Kevin Kaufman,
Keith, aye.
Keith, I'm sorry. Let's see, Isaac Yang,
Aye.
Mon,
Aye.
Joe Hefkin,
Aye.
and Bill Brown.
Aye. Well, there you go. Well, almost everybody's here. That's great. So, first up on the agenda, folks. Well, again, let me ask you, is there any public participation? Anyone from the public participating in the meeting, Eleanor, that wants to make a comment?
No one. I have no one on Zoom, and also there are no e-comments at this time.
Okay, great. We'll move right on to the first item. We've got 4 items here. First one's a summary of our emergency orders and updated circumstances, which happened today. Status of our hospitals and capacities, testing, status of county city recovery planning efforts. That'll be an opportunity for everybody to speak about what's going on in their areas. North Redondo, South Redondo, whatever business-related things, and then any future meetings we'll have with the Disaster Council. So starting with the first one, summary of emergency orders and updated circumstances, I think I'll turn that over to City Manager Joe Hefkin. Joe.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks again for being here. We haven't had a meeting in a couple of months. Doesn't mean that we haven't been busy and we haven't been putting a lot of time and energy into dealing with the local emergency. We're still in a state of local emergency related to the COVID-19 crisis. That action was taken March 12th, ratified by the council shortly thereafter. We've had a number of updates to the city council since that time. We have still a number of our programs and facilities closed to the public, physically closed to the public, but doing our best to keep services going. They talk in terms of continuity of local government. That's certainly been put to the test here in terms of all the restrictions that we have in place. There are a few updates since our last meeting. On August 4th, the City Council adopted a resolution strongly encouraging the public to wear face coverings in Redondo Beach. I have a copy of that resolution in the materials that were sent out. It's strongly encouraged. It's not locally, against the law such that you would be cited for it by either code enforcement or the police department. But it is something that the council has taken a stand on and is strongly recommending for the general public. We've also had, since our last meeting, return to street sweeping, parking enforcement. We've always done street sweeping during this time as much as we could. We just didn't write tickets for violations. We had a warning period, and we're back now to active enforcement of those regulations. There's been actually quite a bit of activity kind of on the recreation and community services front. John LaRock, who I believe is signed on as the second Joe Hefkin here. I think that's you, John, right? Otherwise, I've got an impersonator. There you are. He's going to cover some new developments on the recreation front. So,
Never seen that before.
Good afternoon, everybody. John LaRock, Community Services Department. Just this morning, the State of California Health and Human Services Agency issued a directive to all local agencies, county and citywide, that playground and outdoor recreation facilities can be open to the public with very little guidance or regulation therein. So we are effectuating the printing of signage that they provided infographics for, which will be mounted hopefully within the week's time at all of our playgrounds. So we're also extending that to the activation of aviation track and field with appropriate signage, as well as our adult fitness court and Veterans Park. So that will essentially activate all of our outdoor recreational facilities going forward. So we hope to have that up in about a week.
What agency was that, John? You said California Health and Human
Services from the state, Mayor.
Thank you.
Sure thing. So it's good news, but again, no regulations, just recommendations. On the sign is that people wash hands, don't eat and drink, wear masks above the age of 2, but really social distancing, obviously the basic things, but nothing in terms of capacities. Not that we can enforce that on site anyway, but it'll be really best practice by the public. So the wisdom of this is to be discovered, but it is being effectuated as we speak.
What does that mean for our teen centers and anything that might be going on with Parks and Recs?
Indoor facilities remain closed. So senior centers, the teen center, all indoor community centers, all are closed. So this is just for outdoor-based recreation amenities.
Is that effective immediately, John?
Well, it's effective immediately, but I think it's prudent for us to make sure that we have the directional signage in place, which we're effectuating immediately, and I think we can have up in a week that directs people about all the rules regarding COVID and spacing and hand hygiene, keeping within your family unit, that type of thing. Obviously, the playground's opening, it's going to be a wave of usage. So that's going to be tricky to watch and see if we have any local issues on cases or whatever following, 3 weeks from this announced date of opening. But nonetheless, it's going forward.
Well, people are writing. I mean, and I'm sure people are watching the news, so I would imagine
I've received dozens of emails from the public about when. So
I imagine they'll be down at the playgrounds this afternoon.
And they have been to date. People have torn down the caution tape and used them. It's not like it's fenced, but still they'll be maintained on a regular basis by our great public works staff. So, to the extent that there can be any wipe downs, obviously there are infinite touch surfaces on a playground, great and small. So that's really not going to be our daily responsibility to do, but best efforts by everybody.
Hey, John, how about the aviation track and field? Would it be affected by this recent statement?
Yeah, we're going to plan on opening that up simultaneous with the playgrounds once we have signage in place. The field, we have leagues lined up to do the allowable practice and drilling. They can't play games, but they can do inter-team drilling. We're going to try and occupy the fields with those rental groups as much as we can, and then we'll change the lighting schedule, so we'll knock the lights off at dusk, so to try and dissuade kind of the free use. Because if we don't, then we'll have we'll have multiple soccer and football games pop up, which is against the COVID regulations. So we're going to try and fill that with programming that's allowed people off the field casually.
It sounds like I'm a little bit nervous that it's going to open, and yet we're saying, well, it's not really open for another week.
Well, the state said, generally things can open. We have not said we are open.
What about outdoor weddings?
Well, gatherings more than 10 people from the same household are still prohibited.
Okay, so those restrictions would apply to rec fields and all that still.
Correct. The state's messaging on the signage they provided is that you have to stay within your family groupings. Obviously, practically though, when the children are on the play equipment and the parents or guardians are with them, especially the younger ones, guiding them on the playgrounds, you're going to have closer interactions, which is why masks are being, required for everybody over the age of 2. But again, that's going to be self-enforcement. We are not enforcing that, just based on a manpower, largely.
That mask requirement, is that by the state or the county?
Yes. Well, that's the standing mask order anyway, is
right.
Face coverings for everybody over the age of 2 or with a pre-existing condition that you can't medically wear a face covering.
Okay.
It's like having a service animal.
Yeah, that includes outside and at the beach and all that.
In public.
In public. Okay. Any more questions on that? Well, thank you, John. Joe, any?
Yeah, Bill, that's all we wanted to cover on that. I know we're going to talk about kind of what's happening in the private sector more under a later agenda item, and I know that Ackley and Jacqueline from Beach Cities Health District, they will want to cover the Safer in the South Bay program. So, Tom, if you're up for that, we could do that next.
Let me say something first, folks, because I spoke with both CEOs of the hospitals today. Gary Olney and Craig Leach. And we speak with them fairly frequently, weekly or biweekly, and they're in good shape. You know, Craig Leach said to me today, for the first time since March, they have no one in their ICU unit related to COVID. But they have probably in the low teens number of cases hospitalized. Treatments have gotten much better. But they also said that they're very nervous about the resurgences they're seeing in countries in Europe and colder climes, even in the U.S. So they're prepared for a surge come fall and winter, encouraging everyone to get flu shots, that sort of thing. But they both said for now they're in good shape. And yeah, that's kind of it. So that's our local hospital situation. So with that, I don't know, maybe Tom, you wanted to briefly cover your program at Beach Cities Health District, or Jacqueline?
I'd like to talk a little bit about our Safe in the South Bay program that started out as something we were doing with the businesses to increase consumer confidence and get people back to businesses. We've now expanded that really as a much more inclusive program for the entire community. So we have a few slides on that, and then maybe just give you a quick overview of what we're seeing with the numbers here locally of cases. And so with that, Jacqueline, do you want to kind of take that away and walk us through it?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to find the unmute button. Good afternoon, I'm Jacqueline Sun, Beach Cities Health District. I wanted to just provide a quick update about the blueprint for safer recovery, the state numbers that we're tracking really closely in this 4-tiered system. This should be familiar to most of you, where actually let me do it in presentation style so you might be able to see a little better. This should be familiar in terms of the governor's tiered system that we've been operating under for several weeks now, where we're still in the purple phase. Last week we had hit some of the metrics in order to be qualified for tier 2 in the red phase, and we had to maintain those for 2 weeks. But the numbers just came out today, and the county had kind of predicted it just based on some of the numbers, where our benchmarks were less than 7.0 daily new cases per 100,000. And unfortunately, our numbers went up a little bit, so now we're 7.3. Last week we were at 7.0. So that means that in terms of moving through this framework for recovery, we're still in the purple tier 1, where the risk level is widespread. And until we can sustain less than 7 daily cases per 100,000 for 2 weeks, we will remain in that tier. And just as a reminder, in terms of as we move through some of these tiers, what that means in terms of reopening, this is just a slide of a couple of sectors and what that means as we're able to move through it. You'll see that in the red tier, tier 2, as schools can reopen for in-person instruction if we've been on that tier for at least 2 weeks. And so we are at least 2 weeks away from moving into red, and then at least 2 more weeks into being able to open for in-person instruction. So that's just an FYI in terms of where we are in the governor's recovery framework. Tom, is it helpful to go through this? Tell you what I have here, but maybe to talk about the Safe in the South Bay?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So as Tom mentioned, we've been working with the chambers and the business community to promote our Safe in the South Bay program to help to instill consumer confidence for some of the reopening protocols. And we have over 160, I believe, businesses that have signed up and taken the pledge. As Tom mentioned, we are kind of now expanding this to more of a community effort. You may have seen some of our advertisements, social media posts of Safe in the South Bay, why do you wear your mask? Or we want our beloved community events to come back, so we have to keep up with the physical distancing. So this is just a proposal, an idea that, as you'll see in this image here, it's inspired by some of the mayors in Orange County. And we want to propose a Safe in the South Bay mayor's pledge where we have the mayors and the councils kind of take up this Mask Up to Open Up campaign, perhaps adopt a resolution or a pledge, and then promote the Safe in the South Bay Citizen Pledge that we are close to being able to launch out, which would just be, the actions that we can take as individuals to encourage the safe reopening and reinforcing those messages that we're so used to hearing, but having it come from the top down and really model some of those behaviors, I think, is an idea that we wanted to explore with this group and open it up for discussion to see if that's something that we're interested in.
Great, thanks, Jacqueline. So that was what we wanted to present to the group, just a quick update on the numbers in the South Bay and the county, and then talk about this campaign and this program of Safer in the South Bay, and see what you think, Mayor, and see what the council thinks.
Well, as most of you know, Manhattan Beach and Hermosa Beach have enacted city ordinances requiring mask wearing, and they've hired an outside firm to enforce mask wearing. Redondo Beach hasn't quite gone down that road. There's been a lot of discussion about it, but we haven't taken that strong of an approach. I will note we have a lower infection rate in those cities, but who knows why? It's and the council's made it quite clear they're prepared to do and go down that road if things turn south significantly, and it appears that it's required to do something along those lines. So council's ready to act. We haven't taken that final step. But at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Marion Gaushill. Dr. Gaushill, if you have some information, you always have some very good slides, or maybe you just want to verbally share with us what you're seeing at the county level and cases and that sort of thing. It'd be great to get an update from your perspective.
Okay, thank you. It's great to be with the group. As you know, we track data, and just was pointed out, this is, we track data every day for the entire county. This is the lowest we've seen in terms of number of COVID admissions, really in the entire pandemic. Initially, as you may be aware, the transmission rate was 2 to 3. And so we had, obviously, there was a huge concern as we saw more and more patients coming into the hospital that we would outstrip our capacity. But because of the great work that all the hospitals did, really as part of our disaster planning, we really, although we got impacted, and there were times of surge, we were never so overwhelmed that we really couldn't handle the number of cases. What I'm sharing with you now is just, this is weekly data, and it's showing the gray are the hospital admissions, the blue are the currently available beds, and then the red are the current admitted COVID patients. We haven't been under 1,000 in a long time, and we're down really below in the 600 range, and the orange are the PUIs, are those who are suspected COVID that are getting tested. So the overall admission percentage for hospitals is about 7%. It varies by region. I'll show you the South Bay in a second, just to give you an overall look. This is intensive care, and in March, there were hospitals in the 60% or range of their patients in the ICU that were COVID. And this created a huge amount of stress for the system. You can see, at least overall, it was 40%. When we hit that level in the ICUs, hospitals surged. So they utilized other areas of the hospital in order to take care of ICU patients, such as post-anesthesia. ERs were used just because nobody was coming in. They were afraid. They were told to stay home, so nobody was coming in. Unfortunately, it's not fully a laughable matter, just because some of these patients had time-sensitive conditions. So we saw the number of cardiac arrests go up and have stayed up throughout the pandemic, much higher, about 25% greater than we've seen in previous years. Anyway, so it's about 18% in the ICUs. We never had ventilator issues. We've always had plenty of ventilators. As I told you before, we had in excess of 3,000 ventilators that were available, and there were hospitals that asked for additional ventilators, but we were able to supply them very easily. And so we're also seeing that the number of vented patients has gone down. And the reason this is very interesting is that early on we felt, you needed to intubate these patients very early in order to support them and also to create a closed circuit so you wouldn't infect the healthcare workers. So there was a combination of reasons, and I think they seemed sound at the time, but we really realized that we try to keep patients off the ventilators now as much as possible, and there's significant use of things like high-flow nasal cannula. So we've changed the way we've learned about the disease, and we've changed the way we've approached the disease throughout the pandemic. So that's been really cool in the sense that in the beginning, we didn't know what to do. Everybody got hydroxychloroquine and azithro because there wasn't anything else. As we learned more about those drugs and remdesivir came online, and then dexamethasone and some of the other immune agents, so like the monoclonal antibodies and convalescent plasma, we had other things in our toolbox to utilize that were better and more targeted for this disease. So this just shows, you can see that the number of COVID patients has gone down pretty dramatically. I'm going to just skip to the South region, which includes the South Bay. Sorry for this. It's a PDF, so it's harder to. And so you can see it's even lower, the number of hospitalizations. So it's only like 5%. And when we look at in the ICUs, it's still in the range of 17% overall, and includes more hospitals besides the 2 local hospitals in our area. And again, plenty of ventilators. And so you can see there's a large number of hospitals in the South region. So it includes more than, Torrance and Little Company. But the South region has typically done pretty well as compared to some of the other regions in the county. And I think overall, everybody's pretty hopeful. I mean, the key thing, the biggest push right now is for influenza vaccination. We do believe that the masking, good hand hygiene, and social distancing, as was shown in the southern hemisphere of the world, to have a lighter influenza season. We're hoping, that through vaccination and some of these public health mitigation strategies, that we'll have a light influenza season. So that's hopeful. And the other thing, I know LA is targeted as one of the 64 areas in the United States to get the COVID vaccine, and high-risk patients, elderly, comorbid disease, and healthcare workers will be targeted, will be part of that response at LA County EMS. And so I can let the council know or email what is happening with that. There are 4 vaccines that are in phase 3 trials right now. And so we strongly believe that we'll have a vaccine before the end of the year. And that's it. Thank you.
Well, that last line's great news. Thank you, Dr. Gelschel. And you always have great charts that put it into perspective for us. So it's really extremely helpful. So thank you for that. And 4 vaccines in phase 3, and maybe by the end of the year. I guess then the next problem will be distribution. So we'll see where that goes. It seems like we're stuck in the purple region because we got to 7.3 per 100,000. I mean, I mean, do we still see a high transmission enough, or is there just a lot more testing going on, or can you tell? And comment on that.
We definitely have seen expanded testing throughout the county. It's typically the younger age groups that are testing positive, and so they tend to do better. So that creates, even though I could show you a graph, but at least initially it was not 1-to-1, but it was close. So the number of people who tested positive, they were getting admitted. And so it was really frightening, right? If, as we saw the number go up, we're thinking, oh my God, we're never going to be able to keep up, because then they're hospitalized for a week. But that's not what has happened. As the R was brought down, the transmission rate was brought down. We never overwhelmed. And now we're seeing that the number of positive patients are high, but way fewer, like 1/10 of them are getting admitted to the hospital. So that's pretty exciting. The other thing is, again, we have additional treatments. We know how to care for them. But
Right.
anyway, I'm not sure I fully answered your question.
I think it's probably answers unclear, but we're still stuck at a little over 7, stuck in the purple region, and all the businesses. Everybody wants to get into at least the red area, I guess it's called, so that we can open up some more businesses. So
yeah, we're still seeing transmission. There's no question about it. So,
and just to brief everybody, because there was a discussion at the last meeting to reach out to the county to separate us from the county, the entire county. The South Bay has much better numbers. We hit a brick wall with the county. So Mayor Pat Fury at Torrance put together a letter that was signed by all the mayors of the South Bay, sent to Governor Newsom, asking us to consider us as a separate area. And I just got a text back from Pat, and it's just been crickets hearing back from the state. So we're still, we've tried, sent multiple letters, or certainly had multiple mayors sign, well aware of our requests. We're just hitting a brick wall in that regard. So worth asking, though, absolutely. And but it seems that people are on alert for any resurgence coming, and see how that goes, and vaccine. And meanwhile, you see these resurgences in the colder climes, and we're in the middle of an Indian summer right now. So we'll just have to see. It seems to be it's about all we can do.
Mayor, that's one reason, Mayor, why we wanted to press the messaging campaign a little more around the masks and safe in the South Bay. And so we'll come talk to you about that and see what you think. If we can press that messaging and get people to wear masks, maybe that helps get that number down so we can reopen.
Right. That's been the message I've been sending, and that's the message, we're hearing, mask up so we can open up.
Great.
It's getting through to a lot of people. I mean, just my anecdotal observations, a lot more people masked up than there were even in the middle of it all. And it's become kind of the norm. So, but yeah, it's still being transmitted, as we heard. And we're, it's uncharted territory, and everybody's got these metrics, and we're trying to follow them closely and respond appropriately. So that's all to be continued. So I'm not seeing any hands up. So
Mayor, I have a question. This is Kevin.
Sure, go ahead, Kevin.
And I don't know if this is the right time, but looking at the 4 tiers, I have 2 questions. Maybe somebody knows. I've been asked by special event operators, when do we think special events like weddings and things of that nature would be opened with restriction? Is that tied to a tier? Nobody seems to be able to figure out what tier indoor special events, weddings, things of that nature.
Maybe Jacqueline, you maybe have a better handle on that chart and the colors and the activities that can occur under certain, because certainly not right now. And I agree with Kevin, it's kind of hard to tell where weddings and church activities fall into that. Can you shed some light on that for us?
It's a really good question. I think in terms of the framework, it's more talking about specific business sectors and not specifically about events. I think that the state has been kind of holding off on saying when people who live in households can gather with people outside of their households. So no, I don't have a clear answer on when those events would be tied to which tiers, but just, for example, in red, they're talking about certain indoor operations being allowed, right? And then if you move into orange, then yellow, more and more are. So my assumption would be that as we go to some of the orange and yellow sectors, that some of those may be tied to that. I think that it's a wait and see with the state, because I don't think that they've made any announcements in terms of in terms of other counties, for example, that are in the higher tiers, and allowing for people outside of to commingle with people outside their household. So sorry, that wasn't a good enough answer, but that's definitely a great question.
Well, as an example, well, go ahead, Kevin, sorry.
Just a follow-up question, maybe it's been answered. What about public hearings? When will the city, what level do cities go back to public hearings? Is that tied to any tier or anything?
Again, it's tied to the amount of people that can come together inside or indoors, and so right now we're limited on that in purple. Obviously we're doing the virtual meetings, and so it is basically what we're going to start to see as we go through the tiers is that as you get into the lower tiers, what more people will be able to congregate inside. And that will be the same, I would imagine, for events. So the goal would be to get out of purple and into red, and we'll start to see some opening indoors, and you might be able to have smaller meetings indoors, either in red or in the next level of orange.
As an example, I get a lot of questions about gyms. When can the gyms reopen? And we're not even in the red area yet. And when we do get to red area, they can only go to 10% capacity, apparently, according to this.
But is that 10% in the same household? How I'm getting mixed signals on that.
I don't know that there's an answer to that, really, Kevin, in this group. Capacity must be limited to 10%. I take that to mean if, you've got a capacity of a room of 100 people, you can have 10 people in there. That's what I take that to mean. But, a restaurateur probably would take it the same way. But it's hard to tell. I mean, when we moved into these different areas, I assume there'll be more details. So,
yeah, and the other thing I can add is, holding our Brown Act meetings with this format is, allowed pursuant to, the state's authority. We have had public hearings. We have kind of perfected our ability to receive public input. People can now either phone in, Zoom in, provide e-comments. So there's many ways to participate in our meetings. So anyway, but we're anxious to get back to being opened at the right time. In terms of City Hall, we've got plexiglass shields in place. We're preparing now for the time that we'll be able to physically reopen. But certainly we were holding off during this time. But we are holding public hearings and doing that business.
There's a lot of state laws that have been relaxed. For instance, parking in the coastal zone. A lot of people don't realize one of the reasons we've been able to put up those parklets in Riviera Village and eliminate parking is because the Coast Commission has relaxed. They're what should I say, overseeing of parking. We wouldn't normally be able to eliminate that parking, or we'd have to replace it if we eliminated it. So, that's just another example of some state laws that have been relaxed that allow us to have some flexibility to do things like that. And there's other things. I can't think of another example right now. With that, I'll kind of throw it open to, I wanted to have like an opportunity for everybody to speak about what's going on in their individual areas and their individual industries. Like Alan Sanford in the restaurant business, how things are going in Riviera Village, and Tanya McKenzie, what she's hearing, and Mo out in North Redondo. And I spoke with Dominique earlier today, and he basically told me anywhere from 25, 30 to 60% of businesses are folding, which is frightening, small businesses. So I just kind of start it off and go around. And I guess I'll start with Tanya. Tanya, maybe it'd be good for you to share with us, if you're got something to share with us about what you're hearing in the small businesses and North Redondo Business Association, and then we'll go to Alan and then just kind of wait for hands to come up.
Cool. So, hi everyone. Good to see you all. Most of what we are hearing, of course, is a lot of fear and worry. The restaurants here in North Redondo, we're seeing some high spirits with some of the newer places that have been able to open. Like we have a new spot over by Del Page Park. It's Beach Cities Cafe, and Regino's, a longtime Redondo, business, has been able to basically convert all of their parking into where they dine at, and it's actually become a little bit of a it's a sight to see. It's really nice to see our neighbors and different community members actually out and enjoying themselves in the evening when they open. But we do have, a lot of disappointment and some tears. People that are worried about how they are going to move forward. Like recently, we got Great Room Cafe and Sumi and them asking, can we as NRBBA find some kind of way to start getting people back there, because they do have their outdoor dining, but it's still not getting as much traffic as where you would, as the residential area, because you can't just walk there, and most people are still trying to be mobile. And it's great that our bike path is back open, so that's been good for community and community engagement. But just keeping spirits high, the NRBBA is doing, our small business lives, so just trying to keep their spirits open, keep as much traffic going to them as possible, even meeting with owners while they're still closed, some of these businesses, just to keep their name out there. So just a lot of fear and I would say frustration also, when you can go into, let's say, a Walmart or a Target and just do your thing, but then our smaller businesses are still trying to figure out why, they can't be open and follow the rules. And some of them, on a different note, like they'll go to places like Arizona where they're all the way open. And then, we have situations here where they just can't. They don't have the kind of business where they can be open under these regulations. So, it's kind of a mixed bag. Still just trying to do as much as they can with the regulation that they have, make any kind of adjustments to get traffic there. Like I said, over by Del Page Park, they're open and they're active, and we're sending as much traffic there as possible, but a lot of fear still, like when is it going to happen, and how can we keep the doors open or reopen once it does happen. So went to visit a couple nonprofits with Al Marsucci, and was able to drop off some masks and just have some conversations with a couple of the nonprofits. So with them too, struggling a little bit, but they have state and federal funding and grants and things of that nature that are still coming in. So they're not as worried because they know where their money is coming from. So just really trying to be creative with how some of these businesses can do business, and keep spirits high, waiting for the reopening.
Thank you, Tanya. Let me just say, I just got a text from Councilwoman Imdy that the Board of Supervisors just passed Supervisor Han's motion to allow for breweries and wineries to resume outdoor operations in LA County in 1 week. So there's a lot of businesses in Redondo that have been waiting for that to happen.
Yes.
So a lot of breweries, microbreweries. So that's big news. That's in 1 week.
So let me ask, I'm not sure if do they have to be serving food? So like.
Yeah, well, that was the big question, right? So we'll have to see. Some step was made, and I don't know those sorts of details yet. So,
okay.
But they voted to do something. But yeah, exactly. That was a big question. Something I didn't get to mention too is there's a program for PPP debt relief. And people are applying for it. I think it goes active around October 6th. A lot of small businesses should have taken PPP relief loans, and a loan relief program is being initiated around October 5th, October 6th. You apply, I guess, through your lender, and the funding goes through the SBA. And the word is less than about $150,000 in loans is probably going to get forgiven. So that should be a huge help to a lot of businesses who took those loans. and yeah, looking to have to pay them back. So it's important for all the businesses, and I encourage Tanya and Dominique and anyone with close connections to the businesses community to be aware of that. I think most people are, but some aren't. So that'll be helpful. With that, I guess I'll go. Alan Sanford, do you have any comment, Alan? Do you want to talk about how things are going in Riviera Village and elsewhere?
Sure. Other than my application to be a hydrology engineer with the city and TED, we're learning a tremendous amount around, we put those parklets up really quickly, and now the idea is that we keep them up a little bit longer, and there's a lot of work to do around that. So the city staff's been great. The RVA has been the economic model that we came up with, I think, has really proven to be, for those of you that have been down to the Riviera, it's created an energy that I think we just sorely need. We all understand the health impacts, but the happiness impact, I think, is an even bigger one, which I was talking to Tom with the health district the other day. And I think down in the Riviera, we've been able to, in a small little way, affect the community in a really positive way. And hopefully we take that as a model to proliferate into the outer community. I'm still really nervous for the winter time. I would urge the city council and the cities around here to extend the parklets, to extend whatever programs they can as long as they can. And then the Beach Life has come up with a new program called Social Momentum that if any of you want to get involved with, let me know. But basically, we've gotten together with some of our corporate sponsors, and we're going to be buying a lot to the tunes of tens of thousands of dollars of gift cards from restaurants locally that are struggling. The criterion for that is a little bit different. The criterion is around some of the things that Tom's doing with the Beach Cities Health District, but also around the environment, which was quickly forgotten when COVID came, single-use plastics and things like that. So we'll be flooding the restaurants that are struggling with gift cards, and then we're going to be giving those gift cards out to people that go clean up the beach. So if somebody's in need, we're kind of trying to fuel some momentum to do some good, but also to help people around. So we're just trying to think of different ways to affect the community in a positive way. And we know we're going to get through this, but a lot of people are kind of bummed out right now. And I'm one of the guys that lost a business, so I know what it's like to lose a business, and I know what it's like to struggle to keep it open. And I think all the numbers the doctors have been showing us feel good, but I can tell you that there's not a whole lot of optimism right now surrounding the business community. So anything that politicians, cities can do to just relieve some of the tension to enable these businesses to survive through the winter is going to be really appreciated.
Yeah, on that note, Alan, we've got some money from the federal government, and Redondo Beach has what I'm trying to think of. We have a housing program. We have Section 8 housing authority, and we also get community development block grants. And we recently got, how much was it, Joe? Extra several.
It was 450,000 plus that we, without really any advance warning, was allocated to us, and so we're sorting through the guidelines related to that.
Mm-hmm.
That's on top of monies that we had received as part of our CARES Act funding. And so I think what the mayor was saying is that the council has set aside some of those monies as part of business support, and
you remember the exact amounts? We sent some to Artesia Boulevard and aviation areas, as well as to
initially there was $50,000 Riviera Village. There was 20,000 aviation Artesia. I believe it was another $40,000 kind of citywide after that. So, right. I mean, we're up over $100,000 in terms of monies that we otherwise could spend on internal, costs that we've had, that the council's sharing that with businesses. And it's a grant program, and there's criteria. And each location has, slightly different guidelines, but our finance department is the lead on that. So,
yeah, it's important to get that word out. So whatever, Dominique or Tanya or Alan or anybody can do to get that word out to help with the businesses, that would really help. And there are, certain criteria, as Joe said. Not everything qualifies, but they can be significant and they can be extremely helpful to the businesses who are struggling.
So just touch base with Joe after this?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. You got any questions for me or Joe? My email is bill.brand@redondo.org. And Joe is just joe.hefgen, HOEFGEN @redondo.org. So feel free to follow up with any questions and we'll get some answers. So with that, any other comments from anybody, Mo or Joe, or I guess maybe go to the hotel, maybe Rebecca, maybe you'd like to fill in with us what you're seeing at the tourism.
Sure, I'll jump in. Hi, everyone. So just a two-pronged observation as far as commercial transactions or everything is concerned. We see a lot of sales of commercial properties. Sellers are very motivated to get out, and historically low interest rates. A lot of transactions for commercial properties in the South Bay, especially in Redondo. And on the other side of the coin, of course, the retail and office are taking a beating. And for me, over the past 2 months, I've lost 9 clients, 3 whose leases were up and they just opted to walk out, and 6 actually just threw in the towel and just walked away, mostly in South Redondo, 3 in North Redondo and 6 in South Redondo. So, and, acceptable that, a lot of people are just figuring out these days, they just don't know what's coming around the corners. And they do have a huge obligation to their landlords for the non-payment of rent that's been accumulating. A lot of them are looking at how do they get over that hump. I think if it was extended to end of October, we're about 6 months. So they're just looking at their bill saying, not only have to pay my November rent, somehow I'm going to have to go back and make up for all of that and pay it over 6 to 12 months without interest or penalty. So that's going to be a big hump for a lot of current tenants that they have leases to get through. And I don't know what the answer to that is at this point. But from our conversations with all the clients we're calling, asking how we can help, that's their number one question. That when everything is lifted, how do I go back with 50% income of what we had last January or November or December last year? How do I make up that difference and still not only pay my regular rent, but also pay what I've owed from before? So that's what I'm being asked every day to see what I can do to help. So we are rewriting leases. We're talking to landlords, asking them if they're willing to rewrite a lease at a lower rate. So I think that's what's coming down the road for the next couple of years. I don't think we're going to see those high rents dollar per square foot anymore, because tenants just aren't going to pay it at this point. If you can't get inside a building, that's where their bread and butter is. I don't think we're going to see that. That's just an observation.
So you're
that's
right
for me, Bill.
Yeah, you're right in the middle of it then, Mo, in terms of this creative negotiations and how are we going to do this. And, if you're a landlord, you're watching your people vanish and not being able to pay. You've got to make some sort of amends, but at the same time, they got to make their payments. So it's, we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting.
So, Mo, what is your response usually to them? Like, what are your suggestions, or what kind of direction are you giving them?
Great question, Tony. So what I'm doing is for the past 3 months or 4 months, I'm getting with the landlords and trying to talk about return on investment, the ROI, saying if your tenant does walk away, how long will it take you if you sat around for 3 or 4 months before you leased it out to get that money back? So is it better to write a short-term lease of at least 2 or 3 years, lower your expectation, keep your tenant in place, and both of you work together? And it seems to work, but then we run into a fork at the road. A lot of clients or landlords who own their own properties, they don't have a lot of obligations to a bank, they are willing But if you have a landlord that bought a property over the past 2 or 3 years at 5-6% and has a $30,000-$45,000 obligations that I know they do a few, they're just not able to do that. The residual income that they're getting today, they're coming out of pocket trying to keep themselves overboard with the banks, and the banks aren't being as forgiving as, I guess, landlords are being asked to be with their tenants. So, you know, it's just collecting and it's just adding. But that's been my being a go-between over the past 4 months of talking to the landlords and saying, at any cost, keep your tenant and don't let it go vacant. That's the key. At this point, they all have to work together. But like I said, it's just, you know, it doesn't work, you know, for everyone.
Is this just residential or also?
Just commercial.
Okay.
I only concentrate on the commercial version. So I have my ear to the ground, listening and talking. I've really been acting as a go-between for the past 3 or 4 months, trying to keep the tenants in place and the landlords to work with them as partners and not as adversaries. That's the biggest question right now.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mo. We're pushing an hour, and I don't want these meetings to go on too long, so we keep our participation rate up.
Yeah.
So, but let me turn to Rebecca. And Rebecca, you mind filling us in on how the hotels are doing and what their challenges are?
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to. So we recently received a report from CBRE. CB Richard Ellis is a trusted report that does financial forecasts for hotels. So it's typically the basis of many of our hotels' budgets. And it's a long-term recovery for hotels. They're looking at 2023 or 2024 before the hotel's RevPAR fully recovers. RevPAR is a metric of evaluating the finances of a hotel. So it's revenue per available room. In 2020, the forecasted occupancy is 45% for LA County hotels at $129 rate. 2021, they are projecting an increased occupancy of 58% at a $133 rate. So that's all of LA hotels. The trend that we're seeing is that lower rated hotels are being impacted less than higher rated hotels. Anecdotally, in working with the Redondo Beach Tourism, we've gotten feedback from the hotels that we do have many guests that are coming in on weekends. So people will travel on weekends. They are using some of that stimulus money. Midweek is still a problem and will remain to be one until you can have groups and corporate travelers. So it's a longer recovery, and Redondo Beach Tourism is working with the hotels to supplement. We've increased our digital campaigns. So anybody who is looking to have a getaway is, getting Redondo Beach served up. And actually, as a sub-market of LA, Redondo Beach is performing much better. So those campaigns have been successful. There's just a hesitance to travel into Los Angeles because we aren't as open as some of the surrounding areas. Most notably, San Diego is doing really well. So we're doing the best that we can, but it's going to be a long recovery on the hotel side.
When you look at those broad numbers where you talked about 40%, I think it was 125 rate and 50% at 133 for one. Where does Redondo Beach fit into that?
I don't have the specific information for Redondo Beach. CBRE doesn't break it down for us.
Kind of makes your opinion. Your opinion is as good as anything, I'm sure.
Yeah, sure. Let me get it. So our sub-market this year is running, let's get that for you. 1 second.
What do you mean when you say sub-market?
So if you take all of LA County hotels, there's quite a large swath of land. So it's broken out into 10 different districts or sub-markets. So we're Manhattan, Hermosa Beach is our small area that includes Torrance. And then there's downtown, there's Beverly Hills, Hollywood. So it's broken into several different districts or sub-markets. So right now, for the second quarter, the sub-market for our area was running 50% occupancy at a 149. So we're performing slightly better than LA was projected through the second quarter.
Okay. So that's kind of significantly better. I'm asking that question to help our city staff project.
Of course, yeah. And I can provide this report. I don't know if I sent it to Lori, but I can send it to any of the city staff if you'd like to look at it. I'm happy to review it.
Yeah, no, that'd be fantastic because obviously we're trying to project our future revenue. And
Yeah,
so it's
absolutely.
huge. So that's been our biggest hit. So I see Kevin Ketchum, you got your hand up, Kevin?
Excuse me real quick. I'm just going to sign off. I have a 4:00, so I
Yeah,
apologize.
thanks for coming, Dr. Galshall. We're going to
Yeah.
wrap it up quickly. Thank you very much. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
On a positive note, recreational boating in King Harbor is probably at the highest level of usage that anybody can remember. That trend holds through all the state of California, coastal and inland, and nationwide the same thing. So recreational boating is one of the silver linings in this bad economy. Now, we have our customers who can't afford to pay, so there's receivable challenges. But as far as recreation and vessels, it's heavy uses, best year of use ever. And we've got some customers, obviously, like everybody, that are legitimately hurt from the COVID issue, and all the marinas are working with them. And then you have your takers, and when this sorts out, you know, they'll have a chance to pay up with the rest of everybody else. But on a positive note, best year ever for recreational boating.
As a landlord, Kevin, do you find yourselves doing rent deferments with payment periods to catch up, that sort of thing, or rent deferrals?
We will do all of the above. Again, we have, you know, it's been 6 months for a lot of people that they haven't paid, so we're trying to encourage them to maybe look to get out of boating. You know, you don't necessarily, if you can't afford it, maybe you shouldn't be there. But we're working with them, even though we're not really in the eviction business, we're more in the lien business. But we've taken the attitude that the intent of the county's moratorium on evictions is the intent was also liens. So we have not done any type of heavy collection thing. We're just there's always takers. We'll deal with them when the time's right. But overall, things are good.
Great, thank you. Well, why don't we wrap this up, folks? It's been an hour. You know, it's always useful to hear from everybody. I appreciate
Mayor? Mayor, I just wanted for the record that we have no Zoom participants, attendees, or excuse me, from the public, and then also any e-comments for F1 through F4.
Right. Thank you, Eleanor. Yeah, like I was saying, folks, it's a great opportunity for everybody to share their experiences, and it's not like we're taking action here, but we do take recommendations. We did take Kevin's recommendation last time and go on to the county and the state. Didn't really get much traction there, but we're also able to share information about financial programs that are available and what's happening out there, and the feedback is fantastic for the city. So I really want to thank everybody, and really appreciate people participating. Next item up is future meetings of the Redondo Disaster Council. As you know, it's been kind of as an as-needed basis. People have been, you know, dealing with what they got to deal with. You can write us anytime and contact us anytime. We've been working closely with you know, Alan Sanford and others. I think the city's the largest landlord in the city, so we've been working hard to mostly doing rent deferments down on the waterfront, but looking at individual situations. So it's very helpful for us to get the feedback. So I don't know, we don't really have future meetings planned, but you know, you'll be hearing from us probably in a couple of months if nothing drastic happens. If something drastic happens, we can call a meeting and get together and decide how best to handle things and provide recommendation to the council. But it's helpful with Beach Cities Health District signing on and talking about their programs. And yeah, Tom and Jacqueline, feel free to get something on the agenda to come and speak to us in a meeting about what we can do more to encourage this, you know, various practices that the community's taken on to stem the impacts of this. So yeah, we can't emphasize enough of the social distancing and the masking. And I'm always hesitant to talk about how great we're doing, all those great numbers that Dr. Galshall shared with us and great numbers I hear from the hospital, because then people are just going to let their guard down. But it was very encouraging to hear that vaccine could be available by the end of the year. So hopefully
that's something, Mayor, that we're working on with LA County, so we'll be able to report back on that as well.
That'd be great. Any other comments, folks? Joe on from Northrop?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to, I first and foremost, on behalf of the company and the managers, want to thank you for the partnership. A couple of months ago, I did reach out to Joe and the Beach Cities Health District about finding alternative test sites or speedier test sites, and the Beach Cities Health District and Joe and the city accommodated us. So the organization can't thank you enough. I know there's a lot of going on and there's a lot of things where people are having challenges, but I just want to maybe show you some positive things and maybe a little bit of distraction. This Thursday, our Cygnus aircraft will be on an Antares launch for the International Space Station. You could watch it live on the NASA channel, and it'll launch at 7:30 p.m. on Thursday. So if you want to get your mind off of little things outside of sports and something to look forward to, hope you'll broadcast. You can look at the broadcast and look at NASA and look at our spacecraft and our mission to resupply the International Space Station. So thank you.
Yeah, that's exciting. Thanks for sharing that, Joe. Always get excited about liftoffs to space and important missions like that. It's fun watching SpaceX launch to Mars. So, okay. Well, with that, folks, I need a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, or I'll second.
Okay, motion by City Manager Joe Hefkin, seconded by Rebecca Elder. Are there any objections? Okay, well, so ordered, folks. Thanks again for showing up, and we'll be in touch. And hopefully we don't need any more meetings and we get a vaccine and everything's back to normal. Somehow I don't think that's going to happen, and we'll be having some discussions. Probably have another meeting in, let's say, November. We'll shoot for November. Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All of you.
Thanks.